Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. First, before we get to the show, I want to talk about Treeline Academy. TreelineAcademy.net is the most comprehensive e-scouting course out there on the market. It's truly remarkable. It's helped me even with my whitetail stuff. And Mark just keeps adding more content to the point to where I don't even ever know if I'll truly finish the course because it keeps just dumping modules in everybody's lap. But it's great because you're continually learning. And for the price, you get $20 off with the coupon code PC2020. And it's a 2-year subscription. So that's PC2020. Save yourself $20. And the next thing I'd like to talk about is Basemaps. Basemaps is awesome. I've used it for almost all my hunting all the deer hunting last season that I did. And it was just truly awesome. I like dropping smart markers, having all that hunt data as long as I've got a cell phone signal. And now they've upgraded their offline maps, so they're 5 times faster than the old ones. And I can't wait to get out in the field and try those out too. So subscribe to Basemap online, not on the app. Use the promo code PC25 and save 25% off your order. Remember, that's online only on the website, not on the app. PC25, save yourself 25%. I'd also like to talk about our giveaway. Publicly Challenged is giving away a spot to Ryan Lampers' Western Hunting Summit. You've got people like Brian Barney, Cody Rich. You've got Mark Lebeause there. I believe like so many other people are coming there. It's crazy. The amount of mentorship and learning that you're going to get from this, it's going to advance your hunting career by like 4 or 5 years minimum. Just gaining the experience from all these dudes is just straight up kill it year after year. I mean, they truly are the 1% of the hunting industry. And I mean, their success proves it. And if they're willing to share that information, it's so great. So we're giving away a spot to the Western Hunting Summit in June. And it's in Bozeman, Montana. Once you get there, you got a campsite, all kinds of cool stuff. You can listen to my episode number 65 with Ryan Lampers, and it talks all about the details of the giveaway in the end of the episode. Plus, you can learn about the hunting summit and how it came to be and all the great details of it. So check that out. And send an email to admin@publiclychallenged.com. Deserve to go, or why you want to go, or nominate somebody. And just send it to admin@publiclychallenged.com. Follow Western Hunting Summit on Instagram. Follow Publicly Challenged on Instagram. And we're going to pick a winner in the month of April. So get signed up. Get ready to go. And just tell us why you want to go. It's so awesome. It's a great opportunity. And on top of that, Initial Ascent has decided to give the winner of this giveaway Initial Ascent 2K pack. I use the 2K pack and I absolutely freaking love it. I even use it for my whitetail hunting. So you don't want to miss out on a great opportunity like that. So also go follow Initial Ascent, and we're gonna pick a winner, and somebody's gonna get an awesome giveaway. Not only are they going to get an Initial Ascent pack, but they're going to the Western Hunting Summit. How cool is that? So go sign up, send an email, nominate somebody if you want. Just make sure you put your Instagram handle on the email so we can figure out who it is. And good luck. And now to the episode. All right, so I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Chris Lebeause. And Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yep, my name's Christopher Lebeause. I'm a 12-year active duty infantryman in the United States Army, and I am the co-founder I'm the co-founder of the StoryTime project that is out there to prevent veteran suicide.
So let's kind of talk about your background a little bit with like the military and everything. Kind of, what'd you do? I mean, I know you're infantry, but like combat deployments, action. What happened that kind of put you in a position to where you maybe at some point got some help and want to help others?
Yeah, so I've done 4 combat deployments, 3 to Afghanistan, and then 1 to Syria and Iraq. and like I'm still currently serving in the Army, and like it's like a frustrating thing. It's like a hard thing to switch on and off sometimes. You go to these, countries, like, I came from a small town, and I'm not even BSing you, like I couldn't show you where Afghanistan was before I've been there. And these guys go. I went when I was 19 years old. I spent my 19 or no, I went when I was 20, my first deployment. Turned 21 in Afghanistan. Um, and then you just come back and it's like the whole world changes. And I've done that 4 times now, and I've seen a lot of good dudes that I've lost along the way to both combat action in Afghanistan and Syria, and now at home, seeing these dudes take their lives here, and it was just um like a switch went off in my head. And because the not it was like there's a stereotype in the Army that if you seek behavioral health, you're like a weak infantryman, you're a weak soldier, and your career's gone. And I was a firm believer in that, and like I'm not proud to admit it, but when I was a young sergeant, young staff sergeant, like I didn't believe I needed help. And then after my last deployment to Syria and Iraq, I just took it a lot, like that deployment, and then the 3 prior ones. Just all the pressure started building up, and I ended up there. My ex-wife. That's when we had our divorce. Was when I was in my last deployment, and the stress of that, and the shock of leaving your house with 2 kids and a wife, and then coming back to nothing. It was like, all right, what do I do now? And I like bottled up a lot of it, and I just started like drinking a ridiculously amount. And one day it just like all slipped through, and I'm like, you know what, today's the day. I'm gonna end it. And I called 3 good buddies of mine, my platoon sergeant, a squad leader, the first squad leader that I was this last deployment, and another weapon squad leader from a different platoon. I called them up. I told them that I loved them, and to make sure they take care of my kids for me. And the squad leader that I was deployed with, he met me at my house, and he would not leave me alone. Like, he wouldn't leave my room. He wouldn't get out of my house. And like I was not in a good place. And like if it wasn't for that dude, I would have lost it. I wouldn't be here. And then he called the MPs, the military police. They came and they took me to the emergency room. And that's when my platoon sergeant walked in, and he's like, Chris, I need you to be honest. They're gonna bring in this psychiatrist in here. I need you to talk to her, and we need to get you help, man. And I, like, in the back of my mind, I was thinking the whole time, like, all right, Chris, you got this. You can bullshit your way out of this. Just tell her you're all right. Tell her they're overreacting. All this other stuff. So I'm like, all right, just bring her in. And this major walks in, this female, and it really kind of irritated me too. That this major, she wasn't a combat MOS. She probably never, or like a lot of those doctors never really fire a rifle or anything like that in combat. So she had no idea where I was coming from. So I already kind of resented that a little bit about her. Like, this lady is about to decide my career, because that's what I thought. I thought that if I go to this hospital, my career is over. And I just spent 12 years just molding it. And she comes in, she asks me a bunch of questions. She leaves. She talked to me for about like 30 minutes. And she came back 15 minutes later, and she's like, all right, Staff Sergeant, we're going to send you to a behavioral health facility. And I'm like, the fuck if you are. I'm like, I'm not going. Like, I just lost it. Like, I lost it. I'm like, no, I'm not going. You can't make me go. And she's like, Sergeant, you're gonna go, or we're gonna get the MPs in here. And I'm like, well, like, I didn't know what to do. I felt like an animal backed into a corner because I was so scared of going. And I'm like, I remember grabbing the edge of the bed and like shaking it, and I'm like, I was ready for it. I was ready for a fight, and I'm like, well, bring the whole battalion in here, bring this whole company of MPs in here, because that's what it's going to take me to get me out of this room, or to get me to go into the hospital. And my platoon sergeant walks back in, and he was like, like he wasn't around when that major was talking to me or anything, and he comes in with this like dumbfounded look. He's like, hey, there's like 9 MPs out there right now that are talking about tasing you, man. Like, what's going on? And I just started crying. And I was like, Brian, they don't let dudes, like, my thought in it was that guys like us, once they go into that place, they don't come out. Like, I thought that they were just going to lock me up and throw away the key. Like, that is, and because just like, it was literally like a waterfall. Like, everything just came like spewing out. I'm like, from the time I had to pick, like, we had one time, we had an ID go off in front of us, completely destroyed the Humvee in front of us. And we had to pick those body parts up, and we had to organize them. I was 20, doing this at 20 years old. And Brian knew all this stuff, and we had to organize these dudes to try to figure out what pieces went to what. And I'm like, Brian, like, they're gonna lock away the key. They're not gonna let me out of this hospital. You know, all I could see is me wearing like a bathrobe and fuzzy slippers for the next like year, just sitting in a comatose, because I tried doing the whole, the antidepressants and stuff after my first deployment, and like I didn't like the way they made me feel, because they made me feel like I was like almost trapped inside of like an egg. Because like I'd have so much energy inside, but the outside I couldn't do anything because of the medicine. So I stopped taking it, and I just never went back to behavior, or like seeing a professional about it. And he's like, Chris, you have to go, man. Like, I understand you're scared. Just go. Like, and they kind of tricked me like little bits at a time, looking back at it. Because first, Brian was like, just go with the MPs. They'll take you to the emergency room. You'll be fine. And then I get there. Then that whole thing went down with the major. And the major's like, okay, we're going to send you. And then Brian's like, they're just going to send you for 3 days. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. I can grit my teeth for 3 days. And I remember like walking out, because finally Brian, my platoon sergeant Brian, talked me into it. And I'm like, all right, let's go knock this out. 3 days ain't nothing. And I look at Brian, and I'm like, all right, tell my squad that I had an emergency, I had to go home, because I didn't want them to know where I was at. And then we drive he drives me like an hour to this hospital. It was in Alexandria, Louisiana. And we smoked one more cigarette before I went into the hospital. And I'm like, you know what, man? And that's where it kind of all changed for me. Like, that exact moment, I was sitting at the bench outside this hospital, and I'm like, Brian, tell everybody where I'm at, man. Because if they can see a dude like me can go and get help, maybe we can kind of make a dent in this. If they can see that I can go, I can get help, and then I can come back and be an infantryman, still be a soldier, still do this stuff, then maybe, we could save some soldiers by doing this. And he's like, all right, yeah, I'll tell your soldiers. I'll tell, if they ask where you're at, I'll tell them where you're at, and I'll be straight honest with them. And it was really cool, because I ended up having to stay there for a little over 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, it was like about 2 weeks. And like every other day I had soldiers, like some of my soldiers came up and visited me. My platoon sergeant was up there every day, and a lot of my peers were there. And then when I got out, I was so nervous. When I got out, I was like, man, all right, let's do this. I got out of the hospital, and then I went back to work, and it was like a 50-50 split. Like 50% of the guys were like, I felt like they kind of treated me like a China doll. They were like, oh, Staff Sergeant LaBeause is back. Like, be careful. You don't want to break him. He's on the edge type shit. And then like the real like ride or die dudes that I had been deployed with, and they knew me as Chris, not Staff Sergeant LaBeause. They were right back on it. Like, I remember walking back into the company, And my buddy's like, "Oh shit, Chris, you got your shoelaces back." And I'm like, "Yeah, very good, man. Yeah, I got them back, dude. This moving on up." And um, it really, like, just seeing like the impact that a lot of those soldiers that needed help, that were afraid, because they looked at me like, before I went to the hospital, they looked at me and they're like, "Man, Sergeant LaBeause, like, bullets would bounce off that dude. He's done all this stuff. He's a bad man." And then, like, I got a lot more respect from them, a majority of them, because they were like, "Man, and he can go get help, and he can come back." And because it was 2 weeks in the hospital, and then 2 weeks later, after I got out of the hospital, we had a battalion live fire, which is like an exercise. We go out and then we maneuver on on an objective, and we're shooting live rounds. And there's all these moving pieces, and it was that live fire. Like, it was back. I was still the same guy on that live fire as I was before. I still ran my weapon squad the same. And honestly, and I tell a lot of people this, that I believe that I ran it better, because in the back of my head, there wasn't, like, I would have to calm myself down on these live fires sometimes. I'd be like, all right, these are just dummies out there. They're just targets. They're not going to shoot back at you. You know what I mean? Like, on these ranges. And I would have nightmares after these ranges a lot. But because I went and got help, I felt that I did a lot better on that range right after the hospital, because I knew it was just a range. I knew it was just training. I knew those rounds, they were going away from me, you know. And so, like, the sergeant major, he's like, "Man, Sergeant, be sure you were shit hot on that." And I'm like, "Yep, I'm back. Like, let's do this." And that showed a lot of other guys. That showed pretty much everybody that you can go get help, and you can, you can go get help, and you can still be an infantryman. And then, in May, on May 6th of last year, I had lost the sixth friend of mine to suicide that I've deployed with. And I remember I was turkey hunting, and my wife, she's from the city, so all this stuff was brand new to her. So I would take her out hunting with me, and she was still in the blind, and I went and got I was getting the decoys out, and I hear my phone vibrate. I feel my phone vibrate. I pull it out, and I see my buddy Austin. He texted me. He's like, "Justin killed himself last night." And I was just like, me and Justin were pretty good friends. Like, we worked with each other. Like, we went out a couple times together and stuff like that, and we deployed together. And but the thing that really hit me is that I could have been him. He has 3 kids. He's married, all this other stuff. Like, that could have been me. And he just didn't reach out, or you know what I mean? Like, he just didn't go get the help. And it was like, the world just stopped while I was in the middle. I was literally in the middle of picking up the decoys, and my wife's like, "Well," she's like, "What's wrong, Chris?" And I'm like, another one of my buddies killed himself." And after the hospital, I stopped drinking. You know what I mean? Like, I don't touch. I've been sober for over a year now. Well, after the hospital, I teetered off drinking, but I've been completely sober for a year now, over a year. And so I didn't drink. I wasn't drinking at the time. I knew from, like, counseling in the hospitals and stuff like that, that an answer wasn't at the bottom of that bottle. So I sat at the edge of my bed, and I just, like, racked my brain, and I just started, like, looking into different things, like suicide rates of veterans, and then I also used, like, my own experiences. And some of the things that I hated about the hospitals was nobody knew exactly what goes on on a deployment. And so it doesn't feel like you can really open to anybody. And then I noticed that a lot of these suicides from soldiers, it's always like a big life-changing factor that happens. And like 80% of it is either financial or like marriage, like relationship related. And a lot of those two big stressors get put on by PCS, or which is primary change of station. And uh, so what happens is like what happened with Story and a lot of these other guys. They spend like 3-4 years with this group of dudes. They get this bond going, and then they PCS. They move somewhere else. The Army takes them and puts them at a different station, and they don't. All their brothers are gone. They have to make new friends. It's like going to a new school, and they. That's when a lot of the like they kind of like seep in. They kind of go inside and shut the rest of the world out. And so I'm like, all right, that's one thing. And then another thing that happens is I've seen it 6 times. I've seen it 6 times happen after every suicide. A dude would commit suicide in our unit, and then everybody that did that deployment with them or was in that unit with them, they would be like, all right, hey, we got to stick together as a family. We have to fight this, and then we would be really close for like 2-3 months. And then everybody kind of like teeter off and go back to doing their own things, because we're all, we're busy people. And so I'm like, all right, so let's set a no crap date and time to where you just check in with the buddy, you just call them to see what's up, you know? And then that's another thing I noticed is everybody's like, hey, if you got any issues, reach out to me, you know? And man, when I had issues, I didn't want to reach out to anybody. I didn't want anybody in my business. Matt, when he was at my house that day, he had to pull it out of me. And because, males, people in general, humans, we're just, a lot of us are stubborn, so we have to get that truth really pulled out of us. So I'm like, all right, the 22nd of each month at 1800. And I wrote up this thing on Facebook, and I'm like, let's call it StoryTime at 1800 on the 22nd of each month. Yeah, I picked the 22nd because that's like, the veteran suicide number. For the longest time, I was 22 veterans a day. And then 1800, it's 6 o'clock. So a lot of guys, it's like right, dinner time's almost either there or over. It's like when the day starts winding down, kind of, is in my mind for 1800. And I'm like, all right, let's just set this. Let's just set it to that. And then, everybody was like, yeah, dude, this is a good idea. This is awesome. I like it. And then the next month rolled around, and I just seen my whole Facebook feed was just blown up with, hey, story time, check in on your buddies. It's 22nd. It's 1800. Call somebody. I'm like, awesome. This is doing something. And then I went and one thing that helped me get over alcohol was arts and crafts, like woodworking and stuff like that. And me and my wife, we went out and bought a Cricut, and I got that, like the little sticker cutter. And I'm like, awesome. I was so excited to get it, but I didn't know what to make with it. And I'm like, and it was just like, I just typed in hashtag StoryTime, help prevent veteran suicide. And that's the biggest thing for me, prevent veteran suicide, not bring awareness to it. Like, we're aware of the problem. I'm aware I stepped on this piece of glass. Now, how am I going to get it out? So that was my thing. I'm like, help prevent veteran suicide. And I put those stickers on my Facebook. And next thing you know, all my buddies are like, bro, like, how do I get involved in this? How do I, I want one of these stickers. Where'd you get them? And I'm like, bro, I made them myself, man. And they're like, awesome. Like, how much you want for them? And with me, like, I'm a real simple kind of dude, like nothing real fancy or anything. And I couldn't really put a price on it. And so I was like, dude, just donations, man. I don't really care. Like, I'm done going to funerals. Like, that's my biggest thing. I can't, dude. I don't want to go to any more funerals. So just donations, And then that took off. And it was about the third or fourth day of staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning making these stickers for people that my wife, she's like, well, we can't really go anywhere for COVID because of COVID. So you want to go all in and we can put our honeymoon money into this? And I'm like, I'm like, seriously? And she's like, yeah. So we went all in. And then when we started getting like bringing money in, from these donations and stuff like that, me and my wife were thinking, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do with this? How are we going to better the veteran community? How are we going to prevent veteran suicide? What do you want to do with this money? And I looked into a bunch of like bigger end organizations. Like now being a nonprofit, I see a bunch of like the littler guys like myself. But I looked into the bigger ones, and I wasn't really jiving with how they worked. And I'm like, you know what? My dad raised me. If you don't like the way it's done, do it yourself. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. And then we set up the 4-pillar program. And the first pillar is 1,800, on the 22nd of each month. You're just reaching out to your buddy. And then we have our second pillar, which is community outreach. Going on podcasts, like what I'm doing today. Talking to units, going to units and talking to them, showing my story. Talking to behavioral health specialists, and also talking to the communities. Some of these civilians, they're like, it's like it's just mind blowing. Some of the questions they come up and ask. I've had a dude ask me. He's come up like, I didn't know this dude from Adam, and he was like, "Hey man, have you ever killed anybody?" And I'm just like, well, I never really stopped to check, bro. But like, how do you ask a person that?
Yeah.
Like, and so I go out and I talk to these people about stuff like that, and behavioral health specialists, like how to better engage with veterans, because that's one thing I noticed at the hospital is like I can understand that they're coming from like a medical aspect type thing, but the way the Army is, it's like, oh, your knees hurt, awesome. I'm gonna give you this medicine. Your pain's gonna go away. You can truck on. So I think that's where a lot of like the dependency issues come from. And so it's either they're throwing medication at you, or they're teaching. Like I had this one behavioral health specialist. She's like, when you get stressed out, you need to do what's called bearing down. And it's where like you flex, you gotta act like you gotta go to like you're gonna fart. Like that's what you need to do. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna tighten up the blood vessels that go through your legs. And then when you release it, it's gonna shoot all this blood up into your brain and it'll relax you. And I'm sitting here listening to this lady, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So we talked to behavioral health specialists a little bit on like how to better engage with these dudes. And then also, and then our last two pillars, physical fitness and the outdoors, which were two huge things that helped me through overcoming alcoholism, behavioral health, like, because everybody thinks like self-medication is like boozing or, abusing prescription medicine and stuff like that. No, like shed hunting for me right now, that is the best self-medication I could ever do in my life. Being out and deer hunting, turkey hunting, and then going to the gym, it's like a baptizing experience almost. You know what I mean? Like all that crud and bad crap that happened today, you're just gonna leave it on the floor, like just right next to the sweat. And so those were our 4 pillars, because I noticed that the reason I picked hunting and physical fitness is for a little, like physical fitness, releasing those endorphins, getting that runner's high back and stuff. And then what I had also noticed, a bunch of my buddies that got out of the Army, they gained like quite a bit of weight when they got out, because they're like, oh yeah, I'll go. They're so used to going to the gym, having such a structure, and then they get out and they're like, yeah, I'll go to the gym tomorrow. Nope, go to the gym next week. Go to the gym next month. And they keep procrastinating it, and they gain this weight, and then they feel down about themselves, and then they have relationship issues. It kind of just like snowballs. So we give them that structure back. We give them that goal to shoot for. Setting these dudes up with, we'll sponsor them to go to weightlifting events, CrossFit events, things like that. So they see that 100-meter target or that 300-meter target, and they're like, all right, that's my 300-meter target. All right, now I got to get in the gym. I got to get these movements down. I got to get my cardiovascular system up. It gives them that goal. And it also gives them that little push to get in, get outside their box and go experience something new. And then with hunting, why I chose hunting also was what I also noticed is dudes get out. Guys join the army a lot like myself. They join the army when, they're 18, 19 years old. And that's really a time that we're supposed to be learning like who we are as men. You know what I mean? That's like a really big developmental time. And you got this, but it's spent in Afghanistan, Iraq, all these different places. And the army tells you almost who you're going to be to an extent. You know what I mean? Where you're going to be at what time, what you're going to do, places you're going to go, and then also like it also gives you that identity, like me, I'm Christopher LaBeause. I'm a United States Army infantryman. That's my identity. And then when you get out, you're not an infantryman anymore. You're a civilian. And with hunting, especially with like archery, like that's why I love bow hunting. And like it's pretty funny because everybody thinks I'm this huge gun nut because I have all this background in weapons and all these different classes that the Army's give me and stuff. And they think I'm this huge gun nut. And I own 3 guns in my house. The rest are bows and then 2 of them are like family heirlooms that my great granddaddy bought from like a Sears and Roebuck catalog. And then the other one's an AR pistol that I built when I was bored. And the rest is like my Matthews bow. That's my pride and joy. But it's because hunting, it gives them that new identity. I'm a bow hunter. I'm a duck hunter. You know what I mean? That's something they could take massive amount of pride in, just like how they did in the Army. And then with bow hunting, the reason why I kind of definitely fell in love with it is because it plays off of the strengths of being an infantryman, but also it's just far enough away. Like as an infantryman, you can know where like the high speed avenues of approach are for these game, because animals like deer acts just like human, walk the same game trail. You can pattern them and things like that. And so an infantry or a guy in the Army will know, all right, I'm going to set my deer stand up here. And then with archery, it gives them, it's not a gun, and it takes a lot more fine tuning, I believe. You know what I mean? And so that gives them that like sense of purpose. All right, I got to go shoot my bow today. You know what I mean? I got to get that fine tuned. It's not just the five or the
You don't
basic
got
marks.
your dope set, you don't have your dope set
exactly.
and it's good to go. You just got to make your adjustments and it's there. But yeah, with the bow, it's a continual evolution of practice and discipline to get to where you need to be. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't take discipline to become an expert marksman, but just because you got your bow set, there's a lot more variables to the archery, with your form and everything versus a rifle. So yeah, no, I totally get that, man.
Yeah. And so that's why I really picked those 2. And then it's just like, it just kept snowballing. And I got really, really lucky. Howitzer Clothing. They've been really awesome. And I fell in love with them. And the owner, Ben's awesome. One of my old soldiers because I used to teach machine gun theory for 10th Mountain. And, one of my old soldiers that I taught in the course, he's the head marketing dude for Steyr. And he's seen it. He's like, bro, I pitched this to my boss. He's a prior service Marine. Like, he loves it. So I really, it was almost like the perfect storm, how everything got set up. Like, I'm a realist. I'll tell you how it is. I'll tell you what I went through. And I can kind of give you tips and tricks on how to fix it. And then I'm also constantly like, you can ask a lot of my friends, I will never settle for average. And so I always keep pushing, always trying to figure out like, what can I do to keep from going to a funeral, to keep from losing buddies. And like this year was the first year I've trapped ever. I got a bunch of buddies into it, because that was a thing that, the season's longer. And in the state of Indiana, you have to check every day, so that it's almost like a Groundhog's Day. Like you have to you have that reason to go to bed early for a long period of time. You have that reason to go to bed early, to wake up early, to get out and check those traps. And then when you see that coyote in it, you just get that instant adrenaline rush. You're like, oh yeah, man. Or in the state of Indiana, you can't trap bobcats. So when you got that bobcat in your trap, like, oh crap, I gotta get the catch pole and figure out how I'm gonna get this dude out of there today. It's not gonna be good, but it's always fun.
They're trying to take that away from us in Illinois right now too. The
Oh, really?
trapping of bobcats or hunting of bobcats, and I feel it's just one cog in the wheel of trying to death by 1,000 cuts. As you know from every avenue, whether it's federal or state these days, everybody's trying to take something away from you. But not to take away from what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
but
no, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous because like when I lived in Kansas when I was stationed at Fort Riley, um, bobcats you could hunt them, trap them, no problem. And then I get to Indiana, and I was like researching, and it's like, oh, you have to let bobcats go. And I seen a lot of bobcats running around this year, but yeah, that's so. And it's like we've had a bunch of people being really like a bunch of organizations. A lot of people are like, man, you bring up a solid point. Like, cool, yeah, doing 22 push-ups, for 22 days, that's awesome because it brings awareness. But I think we're all clearly aware what's, excuse me, like what's going down right now, and like this is my way to this is my like my final stand is what I like to say, like uh like this is my Alamo point. This
it's
is
your
where I'll
Alamo
stay. This is
position.
where I'll fort.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
So
that's cool, man. I think I know you always hear all these stories about people, rotating out of the military and losing their purpose and just not having, a self-worth or self-value or a lot of these things. But I think I know a lot of civilians ask a lot of stupid questions to vets, and I can't believe people actually ask things like that without actually getting to know you better or whatever.
yeah.
To be honest, who even cares whether someone's dealt death or not? It's not something that really anybody wants to process.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot of things what you said that could relate to a lot of people, though. I mean, it's definitely more prevalent within the veteran community as far as how many suicides and lives that are taken every day. And like you said, 22. I mean, that's just a ridiculous number that shouldn't happen. And I think it's pretty cool what you're doing with that. And the whole outdoors thing, man. I mean, there's so many studies that outdoor therapy, nature therapy, right? I think that's a huge part. That and physical fitness as well, man. A lot of people, everybody, like you said, they want to take a pill. They want to take a pill to fix something because it's easy, right? But easy doesn't make it good. Like you said, you don't want to settle for just average, right? I think that's a lot of people, and it's definitely me too. I mean, I used to a long time ago. I didn't have much of purpose either. I went through a period of my life where I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, wanted to do. I drank a lot, a heck of a lot. And I kept a thing on my wall. I actually was trying to be a law enforcement officer at the time, and I got a rejection letter, and I kept it on a bulletin board. And my wife, she goes, at the time she was my girlfriend, and she's like, "Why are you keeping that?" And just gave me like attitude about it. And she's like, "Throw that out." And I said, "No." I said, "That's a reminder that I wasn't good enough, but I can be and I will be," right? Even though I changed direction and didn't go that direction in life. But I think it's good to have reminders and set goals for yourself, like you said, and try and give somebody that purpose. And I think it's cool what you're doing with that, man, for sure.
Thanks, man.
And I mean, I it's hard not to drink. I haven't drank in like 11 years, man. Staying sober sometimes, not having that outlet is very, very tough. And if I don't get the outdoors, it puts you in a bad place, man. Like getting that physical exercise, like you said, getting that the dopamine flowing, getting all your hormones regulated through the physical activity, and getting that vitamin D, that sunshine on your face, breathing that fresh air, and just trying to distance yourself from the fast-paced everything in society. Everything is just constant. It's constant movement, constant involvement. I just want to sit sometimes and watch it all go by. And I think it's cool that you're doing that and helping people And like when you had that thing where you were doing collecting donations for all the stuff, I was so happy to like help support that. And it's just awesome because I mean, it's a good thing, especially somebody that's not into hunting or something like that.
Mhm.
Given a vet purpose, I think that's really cool. You know, and I, man, I'm cooped up right now at work, doing a lot of stuff and not having much time to get out. And man, I tell you right now, I can feel it. I'm tired. I'm drained all the time. You know what I mean? You don't get that energy
Yeah.
from like a workout. So, man, that's awesome. So, kind of tell me a little bit more about the hunting thing and what you guys are doing for people.
So like I know there's like a bunch of organizations out there that take veterans deer hunting and just it sends them on these like elk trips and all this stuff. And I wanted to take a little bit different of approach because you teach you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach a man how to fish, you give him fish for a lifetime. He eats for a lifetime. And so what I really like to do is link up with veterans in their home state. I've done it with three different veterans here in Indiana, Kentucky, where else? Tennessee, and that was just all this year, and or no, in West Virginia. And what I'll do is like I'll take them like they want to get into hunting, they just don't know how to. So I'll take them out hunting. Or we had one dude that was so cool. It was the first dude. It was right when StoryTime kind of kicked off, and it was getting into deer season. And he was a dude actually from my 2009 deployment, and he ended up getting medically retired. And I'm like, hey man, like this, like it was so crazy because I hadn't seen him in 12 years, or well, 11 years. And through story time, through just like calling, reaching out to your buddies, turns out he lives 5 minutes down the road from me. Like I've literally drove past his house going to Smoothie King. Like and I never would have thought. And I'm like, man, like let's get you out into the woods, dude. And he's like, well, I do have a crossbow, but I really don't have anything else. I'm like, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. So we took him to the range. We got his crossbow sighted in, and then we went scouting. We set up some trail cameras, and then we got a nice, beautiful shooter buck on public land on the trail camera. And then I took him out. We set up the deer stand where we wanted to, where I think it'd be good. And maybe about a month later, he calls me up, and it was horrible because that was a Sunday night. He calls me, and we Friday and Saturday we took a guy that was actually a stage 4 cancer survivor, and also a veteran. We took him to a CrossFit competition, and it was a team CrossFit competition. And so I was sore. I was kind of like licking my wounds on Sunday, and he texted me and he's like, "Bro, I got him." And like I jumped up, and like you would have thought I was on fire because I was so sore, but I shot up. I put my shoes on. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Bandcamp got that buck." And I'm like, I call him up, my dude. I'm on my way. I'll help you find him. And just it's pretty cool to be there. I was there for the whole process of it, and like passing on that lost art, of getting out of the woods. Because a lot of dudes, like, sometimes like hunting can be intimidating, and it was so cool to be there from it, zeroing his crossbow to helping him load it up into the truck and take it to the processor and to get it mounted. And it was a beautiful shooter buck, and it's that's where I believe really comes in is it's like because your problem like the dude's problems are going to be there, because we got like I really didn't want to do it, but we got 2 elk hunts planned this year, and we're working on a bear hunt and then like a hog hunt in Texas. And I really didn't want to do them because it's like their problems are going to be there after or before the problems are going to be there before the hunt, and their problems might be there after the hunt, you know. But I'm like, all right, well, at least you're going to have them with you on that hunt, so you can take that time to be like, all right, man, like be real with me. I have those conversations that you have in like the deep woods,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and some guys like some of the most meaningful conversations in my life have happened in a little wooden guard shack. on deployment. Like some of the crap you talk about is just insane. And so that's where I'm going with those three, is to get these dudes, they've never been on these elk hunts, probably couldn't afford it, or these bear hunts, or the hog hunt, to get these dudes out there and to teach them, all right, man, this is how you can do it. And then also what we're working on is almost like a pro staff, that I like to call it. And because, I've been in the Army 12 years, I got buddies all over the country and that are just more than willing to help. And it's like, all right, man. And then, so now I have, like, for instance, I got a couple buddies in Washington. So if like a wife or a friend reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I got this buddy, he's having some issues, I think he could use your help. And I got buddies stationed at Lebeause that I can call up and be like, hey, man, I'm going to hook you up with this crossbow that I got. I'm going to send you it. I'm going to send you this gear for this guy. You just take him out into the woods. And StoryTime, cover your licenses. It'll cover, so much of the game processing fees. And you know what I mean? And it'll just, so that way either get that pro staffer is getting them out into the woods, and it almost extends our reach a little bit farther. And so that's where we're really going with the hunting aspect of it.
No, that's pretty cool.
So.
I like, one of the things kind of crazy is I got like one of my buddies that, well, actually a couple of my buddies, but one in particular that we grew up, best friends, knew each other our whole lives, and then just life gets in the way, and you kind of you drift apart or whatever. You only see each other once or twice a year, and then what's funny though is we always get together hunting season, and my wife's like, well, what do you talk about? And we're like, hunting. She's like, well, what about like, family, or how are they doing or whatever? And we're like, I tell her, we do that on the way out of the woods, but when we're in the woods, we just talk about hunting and we reconnect through that. That's it's pretty cool. So, man, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on and definitely sharing your story. It's good to hear that you got the help and you want to help others, man. I think it's a good thing what you're doing. And can you tell people before we go though where they can look you up or reach out to you or any of that stuff?
Yeah, we have our website. It's www.storytimeproject.com, and then we also have our Instagram and Facebook, which is storytime_0520.
All right, man. Cool. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.